Hi, we're here with Steven Van Zandt, Little Steven. It's like a total honor to be here in Munich before the show, before the great show. It's almost like a Chris Farley moment where I go like, "Do you remember when?" You only say yes or no.
He was funny,
but you know, it seems like it only took 20 years for you to come back with the Disciples of Soul.
I know. I apologize.
When did you realize, or when did you think that this is the right time to do that again?
You know, it really didn't happen at all. I mean, I was never planning on it, and it was completely bizarre circumstance. A year ago, well, end of summer before this, summer of 16, we were finishing the European tour, and the local London promoter said, "When are you coming back to London?" I said, "Well, me and my wife are coming back for Bill Wyman's 80th birthday, you know.
All right.
You know, the original bass player in the Rolling Stones." And he said, "Well, that's the same week as my blues festival. Why don't you put together a band and headline one night?" I was like, "Well, I haven't done that in 25 years, but it's a thought, you know." And I don't know why, I just felt like the right time to give it a shot, you know? So I threw a band together and made a list of 20 songs or so, and thought we'd have some fun playing things that people never get a chance to hear, like Paul Butterfield Blues Band and Electric Flag. But then I threw in a bunch of songs that I'd written, and I'd written for other people, and becoming reacquainted with my own music was a revelation. It was a shock, you know. It was like, wow, this stuff is pretty good, and it holds up very well, and it's quite unique. You know, you realize the uniqueness of it because there's never really been anything that quite like that rock meets soul thing the way I did it. So I said, Jesus, through the years, this has kind of become its own little genre here. And it has value. There's something about it. There's something about the message in those songs I felt had value, you know. So we came home, ran in the studio, did the record very quick, 6 weeks, and then I had to go to Australia with Bruce this past January, and then Bruce decided to take the rest of the year off, and was getting ready to do the Broadway thing and all that, and so I said, "Well, I got the year off. Let's go out and play."
Which is funny because I would imagine that a guy like you knows exactly what's going to happen in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I wish. You don't know how I wish. You realize in my whole life, which is whatever, in show business, you know, in public, 40 years, I've never known where I'm going to be 12 months from today. Never in my fucking life. Whoops, I mean, in my life. Never. Okay, and by the way, same thing for TV, as it is for rock and roll. Yeah. You know, they very rarely, you know, will contract you for more than 1 year at a time. You know, I had one of the very few, with Netflix being the first Netflix show, we had a 2-year deal, but, you know, most of the time it's a 1-year deal there, and on tour you never know what you're going to do past a year. So it's all it's a weird way to live, you know.
But there's one thing I got to ask you though, because of all these arrangements and the logistics. Like, do you know in advance when Bruce Springsteen is going to call up the E Street Band, or when he goes like, "Now I'm going to do this on my own"? Do you guys know in advance, or is it out in the open?
Surprisingly not. The year before this one, what would that have been? I guess Thanksgiving of 2015, right? Which is November of 2015. Yeah. I had a conversation with Bruce. I said, you know, what are we doing in 2016? He says, nothing. Don't worry about it. Everybody go do their own thing.
All right.
And I was about to do a TV show, and then it didn't happen. But Nils Lofgren, for instance, booked an entire tour. I think Jake, you know. That was end of November. We were on stage January 15th. It's like 6 weeks later, somewhere he changed his mind, and I don't know how they did it. Honest to God, their tour manager, George Travis, is ridiculous because, I mean, organizing a tour for me is one thing. Organizing a tour for Bruce, you know, you got dozens of trucks, you got 100 crew, you got hotels, you got, you know, I mean, it's incredible, the logistics to get that together in 6 weeks, whatever it was impossible, you know. But so there you go. You know, we don't need much notice, I guess, to do these things.
You know, when you said before, like, you know, and, you know, I wrote a bunch of songs and blah, and see, you know what, you said that so easily. Like it was, like it comes out of nothing. But the songs on Soulfire, this is pretty complex stuff. I mean, just, you know, it sounds and feels natural, but I don't think it's that easy to do, actually.
Yeah, no. And you're right. I kind of was taking it for granted, you know. I kind of, I wasn't really appreciating the stuff, you know, until I heard it myself years later, you know. And I was like, yes, that's what I mean. It was quite, you know, quite complex, and the depth of it, I realized, is different than today. I mean, if you put the radio on today, you just don't have that. And I'm not making a value judgment on it, but the truth of the matter is that stuff that we grew up with was close to the source. And the closer you are to that source, the more intense it is, right? Our source being the gospel church, blues guys, you know, those crazy wild rockabilly guys. I mean, all of the early primitive, you know, influences that we eventually inherited were all very intense. You know, Little Richard, you know, was intense. I mean, you know, and the gospel church, you know, of course you have a relationship with God, which is very intense. Then they come out of church and become soul music. So you have that same intensity with romantic songs now. And that leaked right into rock and roll for us and, you know, and right into the rock era. So we were writing very intensely, very naturally, you know. Everybody was doing that, you know.
How old are some of those songs on the record?
Well, the oldest is my very first song that I ever wrote that I liked, which I wrote in '73.
Seriously,
and was on the first Southside Johnny record called "I Don't Want to Go Home." I had written it originally for Benny King and the Drifters to be a, you know, the lead singer sings and the background vocals answer. Didn't do that with the Jukes because he didn't have the singers, so I produced it and arranged it a little bit differently. But for this album, I went back to my original idea of the singer and the background singers, you know.
So when you played tonight, I took a peek on your set list. So, like, you know, what I could find in the internet, I couldn't resist. But there are some covers in there that I wouldn't really be familiar with too. You just play whatever you want, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of like my life story. I kind of do whatever I want.
But it's just something like you just pick yourself. You go like, I want to do this one, and this one is interesting.
Well, I mean, the covers came from that blues festival, which I never would have thought of doing covers. Yeah. You know, I mean, this is not something you do normally. But the blues festival gave you an excuse, you know, to do other people's songs because it's a blues festival, right? You know, so I'm gonna do, you know, I did some Little Walter, I did some Jimmy Rogers, I did some, you know, Paul Butterfield, some Muddy Waters, whatever. Looked at a lot of things, and the two things that really stood out in terms of my arrangement of them was the James Brown song and the Etta James. So that, you know, it just so happened that the arrangements were unique enough that I felt like I had made them my own in that sense and earned a place on an album, you know. You know, I don't think you should do covers just to do them, you know what I mean, necessarily, but if you can come up with an interesting arrangement and make it your own, somehow express yourself through that other song, then why not, you know? It was a bit of a liberating thought because now I look at things that way now. You know, I can include that in the future. You know.
There's something I gotta tell you. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you listen to some of those songs on the record, as a fan, just a mere listener, you sometimes wonder, oh my God. So what's been there first? Your music or the music of Bruce Springsteen? Because sometimes you feel like this is the same vibe. And then you start thinking further and you go like, could there ever have been a song such as Badlands from Bruce Springsteen without you? Or is it just the other way around? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, we were all listening to the same things, you know. We very much had the same influences and the same taste, you know. That's what makes you friends. Bruce got into the recording studio first, for sure, you know. So he was leading the way, but I did contribute a lot to some of his stuff and
sound,
you know,
basically,
and the South Side stuff, you know. It was all kind of coming from the same place, you know. We just kind of differentiated a little bit. You know, Bruce stayed more with the rock band, and I went with the horns and the soul meets rock thing. But I don't know. It sounds pretty distinctly different to my ears. You know what I mean? I know so much about Bruce. You know, I helped arrange a lot of the songs, and as you said, co-produced some of them. So I know how he thinks. I know. You know, a lot about him, and so I'm always very careful to avoid his turf. You know, So it's not exactly the same, but we do definitely cross into the same areas very often, you know, coming from the same place.
So you're busy with everything. You know everybody, and you must have the best network that I can imagine, you know. I wish I could look at your mobile phone and switch through the numbers at least once, only once. I wish I could do that.
Take a while.
But is there something you say, I haven't done that yet? This is what's on my agenda.
A lot of things. I got I got a list a mile long of things I'm never going to get to. Okay, let's face it. It's very frustrating for me, to be honest. You know, I don't have nearly the output I wish I had. I wish I was much more productive. I have 25 treatments right now, which could be turned into scripts tomorrow. I have 5 completed scripts, which all are great TV shows.
that you wrote?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And then I have people I like to produce. I have live events I like to produce. You know, I wish I was 10 different people. You know, and with a patron with $10 billion who said like, here's all the money you need for whatever you think of. Just keep up the good work. You know, that's what I'm looking for my whole life. You know, not likely to happen at this point, but. So I got a whole lot of ideas that I wish I could. I hope I get to. You know, I hope I get to a few of them. You know.
How many records have you finished and installed somewhere?
And put aside?
Yeah.
No, none. no. Only Bruce does that. He's a prolific one.
Oh, hang on. There's something I gotta ask you too. Do you sometimes need to make a decision whether to go on tour with Bruce Springsteen due to other commitments or not, or is Bruce always priority?
Well, I learned, you know, a long time ago that I'm not gonna. I can't wait around, you know, and wait for that phone call. You know, I mean, that's just not me. So I just went ahead and I was touring the entire time of Sopranos and Lilyhammer. That's 14 years of television. Touring the entire time. I missed 1 month on one tour and 1 month on another tour in that entire time. Not bad, you know? No. Not bad.
You never called in sick, though.
No, but I did have to miss, you know, because I did have some television commitments, you know, that I couldn't get out of. But Sopranos, I mean, David Chase, creator of Sopranos, scheduled my scenes on days off of the tour. You know, it's very nice of him to do that. You know, Lilyhammer was a little bit more complicated because I was starring in the show, so it wasn't. You know, I was in a lot more, and it took a little doing, but I feel very lucky. I've been able to do both things very comfortably, and I want to continue to do that. I hope to get a new TV show on. I hope to shoot it in the winter and then play rock and roll in the summer, whether it's with Bruce or whether it's Disciples of Soul from now on. That's the ideal world.
So but basically, you don't know what's going to happen in summer 2018.
I don't have an idea what's going to happen in January. Okay, Christmas, my life ends. This tour ends. I had a wonderful sponsor this year, or else I couldn't even been here. Yeah, I mean, my thing is ridiculously expensive. I have an arena show that I'm playing in clubs. Okay, as you'll see tonight. Okay, you'll see exactly what I mean. And it's very expensive. And the city, Ralph Andretta and Citibank have been amazing paying for this tour.
You've seen everything, you've done everything, you've been in there for decades. Do you think rock and roll has changed a lot? Is it more boring? Is it more grown up? Is it dead? Is it still alive?
It's gone from being a mainstream part of the world to back to being a cult. In terms of the business, so-called business. Now live, it's a whole other thing. We're still the biggest things live, by far. It's amazing. The two biggest acts in the world are still the Beatles and Rolling Stones, right? Paul McCartney and the Stones. I love that. I love that consistency. And then we got a few others that are quite big, but. None of them are on the radio anymore, other than my own radio network. So it's different in terms of the mainstream goes. That it's not part of the business. It's not selling any records anymore, and on the radio, but. Very, very influential still, very, very important live. And I have introduced 750 new bands in the last 15 years. So you got kids still doing it. And when they do it, I am going out of my way to support them because there's no logical reason to be in a rock and roll band right now, okay? You got to be completely insane. There's no reward whatsoever. There's no infrastructure to help you. There's nothing, So anybody who's in a rock and roll band now, to me, has my full support because they're in it purely for the passion. There's no possible logical reason to do it.
Great. Do you remember how often you came here to Munich?
Exactly how many times? No.
Have you seen parts of the city? Did you ever have the chance to get out?
I love Munich. I'll always have the greatest memories of Munich. I have several fantastic memories here, including my very first memory of my very first trip. I was at the Hilton in Tuca Park. I come out of the hotel, going for a walk, go into the park, and there's 1,000 girls topless getting sun. And I thought I died and went to heaven. I said, okay, I'm going to like this town. I love this country.
I know what you mean.
And I had several really, really important, some really good times here.
All right. No further questions about that one.
Thank you.
So do you actually think there's a chance in the not so distant future that there's going to be another record of you and the Disciples of Soul?
Yeah, it's going to take a minute. I might put out a live record from this tour because there's been so many arrangement changes from the original records and horns added to songs that didn't have them, and it's been such a great tour. This band has been amazing. You'll see tonight. I might do a live record, and then hopefully keep touring. Find a way to keep touring so I can get my head back into writing. It's a muscle that you gotta use, man. It's different. It's different than even, I did the score for Lilyhammer for 3 seasons. Yeah. And that's all composing, but it's different than writing your own album, which you gotta you find a purpose. You got to find a reason to do it. And now that I'm liberated from politics, this is my first album that was not political. And at the moment, I just don't feel the need to be political. It's so obvious what's going on. It just seems redundant. So now I'm kind of where people usually start their careers, which is just making a great record. And I've never done that before, other than this one, where it was not political, where it didn't have a purpose, specific purpose. So I'm going to see where it goes. I don't know where it's going to go, but I want to do it, and I will do it eventually, sometime in the next year, probably. But
unless you get a call.
Unless I get a call, and then we'll be delayed a little bit, but eventually it'll come back, and I'm going to keep training my head into thinking like I used to think, which is you got to be writing songs all the time, and I got to clear my head for that, and it's always a little bit complicated because I got TV things coming at me also. So you got to find a place in your head where you can, you can do a lot of things at once, but I find you really, when it comes to the real heavy creative stuff, you need to do one thing at a time. You really do. You need to focus everything because you want your subconscious working on it as well as your consciousness, your conscious, your conscious mind. So that you can solve problems when you're sleeping and when you're not thinking about it, and so it's a complicated process to get back, and I may never get back to where I was. We'll see, but I'm gonna start that process now. Yeah.
I have no more further questions. Thank you very much, Joanna.
All right, baby.
Rockantenne, der beste Rock nonstop.